Welcome to the Stories with Traction podcast. I'm your host, Matt Zaun. Thank you for joining us as we uncover how stories are one of the most important aspects of your business. We'll talk about struggles, victories, and how you can utilize strategic storytelling to inspire those around you to action. Enjoy this episode. Part 3 with Dan Koval. So for those of you who have been listening, we have already done 2 parts in this series. This is the third and final part regarding corporate social responsibility. Now, if you have not listened to part 1 and part 2, I recommend you pause this episode right now and you go and listen to the first 2. They're going to make this episode will make a lot more sense by listening to the first 2. So in the first 2, just to recap, the very first part that we did was based around the what. And Dan explained to us how important what is regarding CSR from an organizational business perspective. So the what was, what is your community? What do you want to be known for? And what is CSR, corporate social responsibility? The second part in the series, we focused on the why. And under the why, Dan talked about the importance of tying your why to company culture, tying this why of CSR to empowering your company to win the talent war and to retain top talent. In addition, tying the company values back to the why, which is the whole premise of even doing corporate social responsibility in the first place. Well, now we're going to focus on the how. This part, we are going to stress different things that you can be doing right now to not only be thinking, but coming up with action steps to implement corporate social responsibility in your company. So this is going to focus on the how. Welcome back, Dan Koval.
Matt, thank you so much. I'm realizing how excited I am about this episode and the ability to put some feet to the ground of the action of what is possible, right? Again, we can talk about the concepts of what and potential strategy, right? We talked about strategy in the what and how much you needed strategy. And then we talked about the why and the heart behind the messaging. But I think here with the how, man, I'm pumped. I want to help some people, and I want to help some people make a difference. And I think this can do it. And I think this is a great launching pad for folks who want to get into the CSR game and actually make a difference and actually have an impact in their communities and the world around them. And I sincerely mean that and hope that this is a launching point for them. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that we talked about the what and the why first, because obviously we need to know what it is in the first place and then why I should even be considering doing it in my company. So that's really important. But the next step and what's on a lot of people's minds is, okay, I understand the what, I understand the why, and it is a very big, valid why. But now how do I do this? I got a million other things going on as a business leader. How do I even get this off the ground? So let's start with that in mind. So if you were to talk to a leader of an organization, they understand the what, they understand the why, what would you direct them? How would they even begin to start to understand the how of implementing this in their company?
Absolutely. Because I think the starting of anything is where the biggest hurdle comes. And so just to try to give your listeners a little bit better frame of reference, let's talk about a tech company, right? I think those in the technology sphere, those in the technology business, it's a tangible and understandable and relatable business for most folks. Again, whether you're in the medical field, technology still kind of resonates with you. You're in the financial field, it resonates with you. And so there's a lot of pieces that kind of fall in line when we talk about a technology company. It could be a software company, it could be a manufacturing company, but they're still in the technology world. So I think we're going to transition from the pizza shop and the car manufacturer. Let's talk technology, right? We're here in high tech, high touch world, and the first thing that you want to do is if you do fully understand the what's, right? What is your community, and where are you physically located along with that, and then why you're doing things. The strategy then is in the how, and that looks a lot like, how do you want to make an impact with your dollars, and to what extent do you want that to happen? We talked a little bit about opportunities to develop and deepen culture in the company and provide those volunteer days or those volunteer hours. We kind of talked about that a little bit, and those are kind of like icing on the cake in terms of CSR, right? The main platform of CSR, it's about money. And so when we're talking about money, we're talking about corporate dollars going somewhere. If we think about a technology company, we think about, well, let's start at the heart of it, right? What's the mission of that company? So the financial mission is to create a good product and to be able to sell that to their customers and to be able to impact that industry, right? But when we're talking about CSR, the heart of what they want to do is they probably want to feed into the pipeline of their people, right? We were thinking long term. CSR is an investment type strategy, and that you're thinking long term, right? It's not traditionally one and done. It's a longer term strategy. So you're trying to make investments in the community in which you operate in a way that does align with your mission, your core values, right? We talked about how do you, okay, your core values are trust and honesty and integrity and doing good business practices and being sustainable. And that great, awesome, love those core values. But what does that look like? And so I think for a technology company, that looks like investing in the next generation of your team, your staff, your crew, your whatever you want to call your employees, and finding ways to get endeared and ingrained with education, right? I mean, there isn't an educational model out there that couldn't benefit from some more money and some more funding, and especially with a partnership with a company. And so you find those, I don't want to say easy, right? Nothing in this world that's worth anything is actually easy. You find those opportunities where there's something about your mission and your industry that aligns with education, and you focus at that at its core. Because who doesn't want to make the next generation's lives better? Who doesn't want to make a kid's life better? And so I think you start there. And so whether that's again, I think about it in two different pictures, is either like concentric circles of giving, or even a Venn diagram, which I think the Venn diagram style is best in terms of one of the main core principles of your giving is going to be around aligning with your mission, right? It makes sense when you think of your strategy. And so I think encouraging organizations to then fund, again, especially educational things that align with your industry. So if you're in the tech industry, get in the STEM field. If you're in the financial industry, get into those financial schools and support those and support the education there. Are you in medicine? Look for ways to outreach to the community through education to be able to find folks that are interested. If it is, for example, if it is the medical field, right? There's those communities have like touch a truck events where they let kids come out and see fire engines and see EMS trucks, EMS or emergency medical services, emergency medical technician, right? Get to see those things. And so you find those opportunities right there in the community in which you operate and partner with those organizations.
All right, so let's back up and really focus in on the first thing that you said regarding how do you want to make an impact. So the starting point is for a leader of an organization to actually ask that, but to really back it up with strategy. How do you want to make an impact? And then you said something that was extremely important, which is this is long term. And everything you're saying points back to relationships. Where I see a lot of organizations messing up with their corporate social responsibility, CSR, is that it's kind of like once and done. They're giving money, or maybe they start to dip their toe in the water, but there's no strategy. There's really not a lot of relationship building. And that really goes into the long game of what you're talking about, this long-term idea. And you had painted the picture for us regarding a technology company. So let's use that as an example. So, and I'm just throwing this out there as a purely an example. Take it for what it is. And obviously you're going to have to utilize what is going on within your company within this example. But let's say you have a technology company and you've noticed that millennials, Gen Xers, and baby boomers all do something very similar regarding engineering. Okay, let's say based on traditional academic circles, that there's different things regarding engineering that they're doing. And then you notice that Gen Z is handling things radically different. And you want to have an impact with training Gen Z to adhere to different strategies regarding engineering that you know are really good in the marketplace. So based on the example that you gave, Dan, this company may, this is part of the how, may reach out to organizations that are cultivating engineering-based programs within Generation Z to make sure that as the next wave of talent comes into the marketplace, comes into work situations, they're going to be well equipped to handle the different tasks regarding engineering, IT, technology, whatever you want to say. And that's a partnership process. That's actually reaching out to organizations saying, this is how we want to make an impact, and building sound relationships within these organizations to work with them. So based on that example, is that around the lines of where a company would start regarding the how?
Absolutely. I think, yes, I appreciate you echoing the longevity, because any strategy should have a length of time associated with it, right? Whether it's your company's strategic plan, your mission, your values, like those all have a tenure to them, and it's potentially an unending time frame, right? You don't get in business so that you can then go out of business in 3 years, right? If that's your goal, is to have your business close shop in a couple of years, that's kind of a weird business model. So why would your giving be the same way, right? That's why it's not just dumping money somewhere and running away. It is investing truly in the community and the opportunities for the next generation. So yeah, so finding an organization that is associated with what your mission and your values are. Again, we talked about it, I think, in the how section, where, again, this is probably just a statistic I'm making up, but for every for-profit, there are so many other nonprofits that are out there doing things to help people to take hold of opportunities around them so that they can be successful in life. And so wouldn't you, as a business owner, wouldn't you want to ensure that your employees for years to come, decades, generations to come, that they're fully equipped to be highly skilled and effective in your business? And if not just in your business, but in your supply chain that affects your business. Again, whatever your business is, you don't operate alone. And so there's a number of other businesses you interact with, you touch, you facilitate things with. And so you want all of those businesses to be successful. And so even if, right, so let's say a technology company, maybe they're developing software, for example. Yes, you want more people that code software, that are software engineers, that are in that realm. But don't you want more regular engineers? Don't you want more architects? Don't you want more people that are out there in other facets of the industry that you're in that can then propel their careers and deliver better products and services too? It's the saying that a rising tide rises all ships. And I think it's important that we know that as we invest the money in the community, yes, some of it's going to come back and return an investment to you directly, tangibly, and some of it's not. And that's okay. It's the intangible and intrinsic value that comes from philanthropy that really drives a lot of it, because it ties into the why, it ties into your heart and how that affects and encourages your core values to move forward. And so I think, right, aligning your giving to your mission, and then in addition to that, taking it one step further, because sometimes that could appear as if it's only self-serving, right? It's just for the business, it's just for the company, it's just for the executives or something like that. But you want to find ways to tie in your people, right? We talked about culture as well. And I think finding ways to have your giving tie into your people. And we had talked about the volunteer days or volunteer hours. There's two phenomenal ways to empower your people to be able to get involved in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, absolutely. We did dive into different strategies that companies could be utilizing regarding their people. Before we get to that part, though, I do want to backtrack a little bit and talk about the value mission piece from a client perspective. So I want people to conceptualize this. So this really falls under the how. Is how do you want to focus on your values and mission when it comes to CSR? And what I mean by that is I want people to think deeper with that, because we throw out all these things, especially in corporate America, regarding values. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that often employees don't even know what the company values are. Like, and I'm going to challenge everyone listening to this just to prove my point. Go and pull some of your employees aside and ask them what the company core values are. And more than likely, here's how the conversation will go: putting the customer first, integrity, character. They don't know. They don't know. They've worked at the company for 8 years. They've had lunch in a break room where the corporate values have been posted on the wall, but they don't know the company core values because it's not living out in front of them. It's not a behavioral thing. It's that there's no stories to back up the values. So I always challenge business leaders: what are your core values? And then how are you sharing stories that exemplify those core values? So if one of your core values is putting the customer first, well, then it would make sense to really understand where your customers and your client's heart is as well. You know, one of the things that I've talked about on this podcast with other guests is the importance of truly understanding your ICA, ideal client avatar. Some organizations call it a persona. An ICA is the makeup of your ideal client. Who are they? What are they about? Where do they do work? What kind of movies do they watch? What kind of families do they have? Like, really a detailed ICA, which really empowers an organization from a marketing perspective. Well, if you find out that 80% of your clients have a heart for Alzheimer's awareness, then a company would almost be foolish not to link CSR with an organization that really ties into Alzheimer's disease. And we have all this data right now. I mean, we're talking technology companies, IT. Well, there's so much data out there. There's so much that we know about our clients and our customers. I mean, if an overwhelming majority of your clients are passionate about something and you're also passionate about it, how do you connect the two? So let's talk about that for a moment regarding values. Once an organization says, okay, this is how we want to make an impact, then they shift to, okay, here's how we want our values to really play out in the world. Knowing different information about clients, how could they link up with organizations in that way? And then we'll dive more into the employee aspect. But just surely from a client perspective, what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's great. And I think I'd be interested to know from your listeners if they in there, right? Everyone's got a CRM, right? I mean, good golly, even if it's just an Excel file somewhere, right? Every business hopefully is tracking their customers, right? The customer relationship management software, CRM. And so I wonder if they do track what their biggest clients do care about, right? Again, everyone's got it. It's on their About Us page. It's on their, who we are and what we're for and whatever else. So if you're tech company A and you're selling hard drives to tech company B, right? Tech company B, who's probably putting the machines together, they probably have a website. They probably have that information out there, right? And maybe they care about the next generation engineers. Maybe they care about serving an underserved population, right? Whether it's a lower socioeconomic status or it's somewhere else in the world that, hey, we're looking to expand our business to these other areas and we want to make sure that we've got some talent down the road. So if tech company B, if that's what they care about, you as the supplier, tech company A, right, it would behoove you to know what they care about and then maybe even partner with them with some of the nonprofits, right? In your Alzheimer's example for example, I think that's phenomenal, right? Is understanding what your customers and clients want and need and how do you align those things together. I think it's simple, but it's not easy. And I think that's where, like you were saying, like the strategy and the timing pieces tend to fall off because it takes that little bit of extra work to be able to do that one little thing, right? Who are the executives of your customers and clients? Who are they following on social media? Who are they connected with? Again, to jump forward a little bit to talk about your employees, right? Like they tell you directly on their resume or their CV, right, what they care about. Well, the same could be true for your clients if you've got a space in your CRM to put that information and you're doing your due diligence to learn about them. Are you just simply trying to sell them something, or are you truly entering into that relationship and finding other communal touch points where you can dive deep in a relationship with another organization and say, oh, you care about clean drinking water in this other country because your founder was born and raised in that country, built their own business, migrated somewhere else, yada, 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 which happens all the time, is that people work their way to a situation where they then grow a business and it gets huge. But at the very core of that person, that founder that had grown the business, right, they want to give back. And so you as a business owner should be supporting your partners in that way.
Yeah, there's a really important point that I don't want people to miss. And this really goes back to stories with traction, like actually having stories with traction, because now once you lock into what your clients want, you are supporting organizations and empowering them. And there's all these stories that come from that. So let me give you a very, very real life example in my own life. I do a lot of strategic storytelling workshops where I go into companies and I teach them different elements of story strategy. A lot of the companies that I've recently spoke to, one of their biggest missions is regarding the environment. They understand that there are different elements of the United States that are very overdeveloped. They're very concerned about the environmental impact. Well, knowing this information and now being told this, I'm working with different organizations regarding environmental aspects, and I'm having tons and tons of stories now that I'm building out to go back and tell my clients because that's what they want to hear. So back to your point regarding the CRM, yeah, absolutely. It's very important. If you have different clients that they want A, B, and C when it comes to their legacy, their impact, how are you partnering with different organizations that are going to empower you to tell more stories? So I think that's absolutely important to really ask yourself, how do you want to focus on your values and your mission? And how do you want to focus on the values and missions of your clients? So let's take it another step further to talk about employees and team members. So another part of the how is, how do you want your employees to view the organization and to view leaders in that organization? I often talk to organizations that are really interested in like how to be able to share such powerful stories that their people will bend over backwards for them. And I'm even asked, like, how do you get to the point where you're such a great orator that people are willing to take a bullet for you? Like, I've actually been asked that question numerous times. Well, a lot of that goes back into showing how much you care for the team that you're serving in a servant leadership mindset. So how do you want your employees to view you. So let's talk about that a little bit, Dan, about different strategies companies could be doing to empower their employees to change their perspective on the organization and on leadership itself.
Yeah, so I think there's a number of avenues, right? And this is not going to be an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. Again, we talked about like the volunteer day, which again is the paid time off during your workday to go out and go volunteer at any nonprofit you want. The volunteer dollars, where if you take your own personal time and volunteer, and you get the company to match it. There are a lot of ways to take what the company has either budgeted or intends to budget for CSR and make it available to have the employees participate in that, right? Again, if you're working with organizations that align with your mission, your core values, and you're using those core stories to tell people, especially your partner organizations and your clients, and then also your employees, about the things you're doing, people are going to start to take notice that you're about giving back. You're about making the world a better place. And it's not just lip service. And then they're going to go, hey, will the company sponsor this? Are you going to support my kid's soccer team? Are you going to support a band trip? Those sorts of, like a marching band. I feel like there's always the high schools and the grade schools that go to like the Parade of Roses and whatnot, like those sorts of things. There's whatever the employee is involved in, whether it's their kids in an activity, or they themselves are participating, and maybe they're serving on the board of a nonprofit. Maybe they're a lead volunteer on Saturdays at, rehabbing a house or something with a nonprofit, or anything. However your employees are involved in the community, right? Because it's great to allow the employee to bring those nonprofits to you because they've vetted them. If someone's willing to go spend their free time working or serving at a nonprofit, they've probably done some sort of checking around, even if they didn't do it intentionally, right? If you're at a job site, for example, it's like a building houses for the community, right? You're there at the job site, and as you're working, you will notice if things are off. Whether you have any experience in contracting or not, you will understand that, hey, is everyone standing around? Am I the volunteer? Am I the only one working or not? Right? That you're subconsciously vetting the organizations you're volunteering for all the time, right? You're scrutinizing them in a good way to ensure that it's worth your time for being there. And if so, then you bring it back to you, the employee, bring it back to the company. And there's a number of ways where you can do this. You can set up a systematic grant like system, right? Where you say, okay, anybody that serves on a board, we're going to donate so much money to that nonprofit. Anyone that volunteers so many days, we're going to donate so much money. You could do different things where, again, going back to the tech company example, right? What, again, we think about what is the long-term relationship you want to establish with organizations in the community. Oh, well, if you get a dozen employees to get together to want to go do a career fair at this school or this community center or the library, right? Wouldn't it be wise for the company to then monetarily invest? And so you could sponsor an event. Everybody's got a golf outing. We're getting back into the chicken dinner events. Man, I've never been so excited to have some a chicken dinner at some hotel ballroom in my life. It's been, I'm excited to get back to events. And so there's going to be lots of opportunities to sponsor things and support things and buy tickets to stuff. And so look for the places where your employees are at, where they're serving and where they're involved, and ask them, right? If your core values, like Matt had said, if your core values are taped to the wall in the break room and people see them, but they don't see them being lived, then how will they know that you're a giving organization, and how will they know that they can even approach you? And I think that's huge.
So let's get a little bit more into the weeds with this and kind of dive a little bit deeper from a real how actionable step. So people are going to listen to this, and then, how do they actually do this from an action step? So let's kind of break down what we've talked about, and then zone in. So once an organization truly identifies the impact they want to have in the community, they understand their values and their mission. So how they want to focus on that. They understand different elements of what their clients are interested in regarding legacy. Would it be wise for a company to pull all of these different ideas and topics, and then maybe even organizations, and then once they have all of that information, let's say focusing on 7, and then sending out like an employee survey saying, hey, these are the 7 initiatives that we're really interested in. What do you think about this? And then letting the employees, based off of that list, pick to kind of create more buy-in with the employees. Does that sound like a good idea? Is that something that you've seen? Is there something else they could be doing? What is a clear metric indicator with like actual data that backs this up, especially when we're talking tech companies that could potentially be huge? What's an easy way to do this, a simplistic way to actually get numbers behind it?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think your example there, Matt, is a very low barrier, easy entry, simplistic way for a company to say, yes, here's a handful of initiatives that we can very easily corporately get behind. Everybody vote, and you can dispense the money in a number of ways, right? You can dispense, okay, out of the 7, you give all the money to the one that gets the most, or some variation of you give some of the money to each of the 7 in relation to how it ranked based on your employees, right? If you could do the top 2 get all the money and split it 50-50, all 7 get whatever proportion is that they've ranked, right? And so I think there's a number of ways to split that up, but I think that's a phenomenal way. I've also seen companies that will, allocate or designate funds per employee to an organization of their choice, as long as it fits within the constraints of the company's mission, right? Going back to a tech company, thinking about the STEM world, right? Sorry, science, technology, engineering, and math. To those who don't know what STEM stands for, sorry for using the acronym earlier. And so you say, hey, full-time colleague, full-time employee, you can designate so much money of the company's money to a program that promotes education within this genre of STEM, because it aligns with our corporation and our mission and our values. And you say, okay, every full-time person gets to do that. Awesome. That's a really good, tangible, metric-based way of saying, okay, well, what are the top organizations that are getting money? Is it the local library? Is it the local middle school? Is it a preschool? Is it a university? Right. And so I think those are 2 similar but mildly unique in the proposing, right? The one that the example you gave, Matt, the corporation proposes a list of initiatives and allowing the colleagues to vote on it, and you have larger chunks go out. Or you could, even in very small bite-sized donations, earmark a pile of cash to be given away and let each employee then designate or allocate their piece of the pie off to a specific organization.
So I want people to recognize so many different avenues could come up by doing this. So let's use the example that you gave regarding this technology company. So the technology company, they send out a survey to their entire team. For the sake of this example, let's say it's a medium-sized company. There's several hundred employees, and they have 7 different initiatives. They have 7 different organizations that they've taken through all the how filters that we've already talked about. And the overwhelming response from the 7, let's say 69, 72, whatever high percentage comes back, 75% of their employees say, we're interested in this education organization that really helps children in middle school or high school, really prepare them to get into the engineering space when they go to college. So now they've clearly identified the overwhelming majority of their team is interested in this. Once they do that, that opens up a ton of different avenues regarding the how. So now they could bring in the executive director of that organization to talk with the employees. They could like literally have town hall style meetings where maybe it's in person, maybe it's a virtual type format. Now they're meeting this person. Now it empowers the company to showcase what this organization does on a much deeper level. Maybe the employees could be giving personally, maybe there could be match dollars from the organization. There could be, you can set someone aside or designate someone almost as the ambassador that bridges the link, where now they're setting up community days with this organization. They're going out, they're actually seeing the students. There's so much that this opens up. And then think of all the marketing that can come with this. Just the sheer volume of marketing, touting to the community. We told you that our mission is about making the community better. Here's how we're actually making the community better. All of the marketing that comes with that, all of the employee engagement that comes with that. One of the things a lot of companies are struggling to do is figure out how to keep team members excited and actually engaged and build this awesome team dynamic. What an awesome way to do it based on what you said regarding golf outings, right? Golf outings that are fundraisers for an organization. It could be a fundraiser for this specific organization. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty regarding how, based on everything I said, based on that example, what are some other things that a company can do now once they've clearly identified the organization they're going to support?
Yeah. So if there's resounding identification, right? If you get 75% of your people to agree on something, man, that's amazing. And it's possible, right? Again, there's plenty of organizations out there. There's plenty of really good ones that will and can align to the mission, the values of the company. And I think, right, you look for the value add, right? You hear this in business all the time, right? What is it? Is it a land and expand? Right, is a sales term I've heard. I'm no stretch. Am I a salesperson myself? However, I understand, right? You make one connection and you find one piece where you and the organization, you, the corporation, the business, the tech team, and the nonprofit, you find one place of unity. And maybe that is just sponsoring a golf outing. Maybe it is sponsoring an event. Maybe you're buying a new shelf and some books for the local library, whatever. Then you look for more ways to work together. Employees can volunteer their personal time. They can get involved. They can serve on the board of directors. They can serve on committees. They can serve in all sorts of various ways. Your company probably has people that do things like marketing, like sales, like finance, like HR, right? I mean, some of those things as a medium-sized business, you may have other companies you partner with that you've kind of subcontracted that work out to them, but you might have those people within your business. And if you do, guess what nonprofits need? They need people that have these special skills because they don't have them most of the time, right? Nonprofits are really good at solving problems and providing aid and providing help and direction and education. They're not always great at running a business. And a nonprofit is a business, it just has a different type of investors, right? In a for-profit, the investors are the ones that hold your shares. In a nonprofit, the investors are the ones that are just giving money to serve other people. And so understanding that difference and understanding how you, the for-profit business, the corporation, the tech company, the whatever, you can take those skills, right? That skill share is available to give to the nonprofit. You can have your employees go in and do like a job shadow with the population that's being served. Again, if we're talking about education, you're probably talking about students, you're probably talking about people that may have never heard of the type of business you're in, may have never realized the opportunities that are available to them out there. Myself, growing up in the city of Philadelphia, I didn't know software was a thing. I'm a product of the Philadelphia public school system from the 80s and 90s, right? Like that wasn't a thing. Now it is. Now I went back to the grade school where I went forever ago, and they had so many more opportunities for these students today, but there's still so many more available out there that the teachers just don't have time to go find. Well, once you start that relationship with that organization, you can continue to expand and add value to that nonprofit because of your long-term relationship.
Awesome. So this how to me, based on everything that you're saying, is how can you, as the business leader, utilize your resources to empower the initiatives you decided on? And resources is not only financial, it could be timing. It could be, now that you have a large team, part of the resources is the time, which also ties back to financial, but there's creative ways to think outside of that as well regarding resources. So Dan, we touched on a lot of different aspects regarding the how, and I'm excited because I do believe that this gives a clear understanding of how to take the how angle regarding CSR. So I want to recap before we close out not only this episode, but the whole series, which is awesome that we did a 3-part series on this, because I think it really brings a lot of clarity to this subject. So we talked about 5 specific things in this conversation that I think will be invaluable to business leaders listening. So we talked about, how do you want to make an impact in your community? So again, in the what episode, part 1, we talked about what is your community in the first place. So once you've identified that, how do you want to make an impact on your community? So that's the first how. The next how that we discuss is, how do you want to focus your values and your mission? How do you want to do that? Once you identify that, how do you want your clients to view your legacy? And really understanding the ins and outs of what your clients want, what fuels them. Then we dove into, how do you want your employees to view the company and the impact the company has? And then once you establish that, how can you utilize your resources to empower the initiatives that you've decided on? So this all falls under the umbrella of how, on how you can creatively be taking all the different things that we just filtered through and really empowering these initiatives. So Dan, thank you so much for everything that you shared. I do think it's absolutely invaluable to companies. I've seen time and time again, companies that actually do what you're saying get unbelievable amounts of success that pay in huge dividends in multiple aspects of their company. So Dan, thank you so much. If people want more info on you, what you do, they want to reach out, they have a question for you, what's the best place that you can direct them to? What's the best place that they can reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. And yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the spot where I'm at the most. So Dan Koval, find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Matt will put my link in the show notes there, as he always does. But I had a great time. I really enjoyed this conversation, this series, and I'm looking forward to seeing companies take the concepts and the ideology behind having a strategy, and not just a strategy of where you want your money to go, but I think aligning with your stories of traction, Matt, and being able to tell the story to everyone else, because it's all well and good to do good things, but if you don't tell people what's going on, they'll never know.
Well said. And again, highly recommend people go through this series. It's going to answer a lot of questions people have in regards to this topic. So the very first part, we talked about the what. The second part of the series, we talked about the why. And now we just talked about the how. This will give a lot of people a clear indication of how to do what we've been talking about. So thanks again, Dan. I very much appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. If you have a story that you would like to share, feel free to drop an email to matt@mattzaun.com with the subject line Stories with Traction. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, where I share tons of resources on how you can be a better storyteller. Remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.